I wake to the steady hum of the city's breath, not a gentle morning breeze, but the mechanical pulse of London's central processing hub, adjusting atmospheric filters yet again. It's 6 a.m., and as usual, the air quality readout blinks green, signaling that today's work will require nothing more than the standard respiratory masks. No surprise there. Around me, the cold steel walls of my flat on the 72nd floor of the Victoria block hum quietly, illuminated by the familiar pale blue glow of artificial daylight. My home is a capsule in this vertical metropolis, a place where every detail, temperature, humidity, even light wavelength, is calibrated to optimize my productivity. I can't help but wonder, if perfection is the goal, why does my back ache like I've been hunched over a ledger for a century? My name's James, and I'm a clerk in one of the countless administrative sectors that keep this city, this planet, alive. Not by farming or mining, mind you, but by bureaucracy. The sort of bureaucracy so vast that it makes the British civil service look like a toddler's finger painting. We process reports from every corner of the galaxy, from the outer colonies struggling against alien invasions to the frontier worlds begging for supplies. My job is to cross-reference requisition forms with shipment logs. A task so precise that a single error could mean the difference between a squadron getting their ammunition or being left to fend off Xenos with nothing but their wits and, well, that won't end well. People like me are born into this rhythm. Aptitude tests at the age of 7 decide where you fit in this grand machine. I wasn't born to be a poet or a soldier. No, that's someone else's destiny. I'm here to keep numbers straight, files in order, and the wheels turning smoothly. It's a life without surprises. Spontaneity is practically outlawed by efficiency consultants. Even marriages are arranged to maximize productivity, though between you and me, I sometimes think their calculations forgot to factor in human stubbornness. My own wife, Clara, wears her pale gray uniform with the sort of quiet elegance that defies the drabness of our world. Her dark auburn hair is always pulled back in a neat bun, exposing the slender curve of her neck, where a delicate silver chain glints softly. She moves through the halls like a ghost, efficient and unseen, but I catch the flicker of tiredness in her eyes, the same tiredness I feel when another day's forms stack up like a mountain. Our city, London Deep, is a towering maze of HAB blocks and pneumatic tubes, where millions are ferried between levels with clockwork precision. The tubes hiss and clatter like giant metallic serpents winding through the vertical sprawl, and the tech priests who maintain them treat their work like prayer. There's a kind of beauty in it if you squint hard enough. The air itself is a concoction of recycled breaths and engineered gases, flavored faintly with the metallic tang of machinery. Outside, the sky is an artificial dome, painted with sunsets that have no natural pattern but possess a haunting beauty. A mix of orange and violet hues that remind me of stained glass windows in a cathedral. It's almost poetic, if you ignore the oppressive sameness. I take my morning ration with a resigned sigh, a nutrient paste infused with synthetic flavors extracted from atmospheric processors. The taste is bland but comforting, like a distant memory of something edible. On the communal broadcast, a devotional hymn echoes through the speakers, voices trained to sing in harmonies optimized to reduce stress and enhance mental clarity. The strange, really, how even our prayers have been engineered for efficiency. Sometimes I catch myself humming along, not because I believe, but because it helps me focus. As I prepare to leave for my shift, I glance at the air quality monitor one last time. Today, like every day, promises to be just another cog in the endless machinery. But beneath the layers of steel and light, in the forgotten depths of the city, I sometimes wonder what stirs in the shadows. Those lost souls who live beyond the regulated zones, where the air tastes of rust and ancient plastics, and bioluminescent fungi cast eerie glows on the walls. They say those deep dwellers worship in shrines older than the empire itself, chanting prayers in languages no one alive understands. I've never seen them, but their existence is a whispered reminder that even in this perfect order, chaos simmers below. I step onto the transport platform, the pneumatic tube doors sliding open with a hiss. The familiar rush of pressurized air envelopes me, and I brace myself for the journey down through the layers. Another day, another cycle. Yet, as the city breathes with its eternal rhythm, A faint vibration hums beneath my feet, something ancient and alive, waiting patiently in the depths. And I can't shake the feeling that today, something will break the pattern. The rush of pressurized air swallowed me as the pneumatic tube shot downward, whisking me through London Deep's endless vertical sprawl. The walls outside blurred into streaks of cold steel and flickering indicator lights, casting ghostly reflections on the polished surface of my gray uniform. I gripped the handrails, trying not to think about the weight of another day's paperwork waiting for me at Sector 47B. But even as the city's artificial heartbeat throbbed around me, my mind wandered to the whispers from below, the deep levels where the forgotten dwellers lurked. They called it the underbelly, though no one alive really knew what lay down there. Stories told of twisted tunnels lined with rusted pipes, where the air tasted of iron and decay, and the only light came from fungi glowing with a sickly blue-green hue. The few who claimed to have seen those depths described shadowy figures, gaunt and pale, moving silently among the relics of old machines that hummed with forgotten power. Some said these deep dwellers were the descendants of the original engineers who built London Deep, their bodies altered by generations of exposure to toxic atmospheres and genetic modifications long abandoned by the surface world. I never believed such tales until today. The pneumatic tube slowed as it reached the lower administrative levels, the air pressure shifting subtly. A small tremor rocked the tube, barely noticeable but enough to jolt my thoughts. I pressed a hand to the panel beside me, feeling the faint vibrations pulse through the metal like a heartbeat out of sync. The others on the platform paid no attention, their faces expressionless beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. In London Deep, you learn to ignore the little anomalies. They were just glitches in the system, and the system was everything. I stepped out into the corridor, the endless rows of cubicles stretching before me like the pages of a ledger that never ended. Around me, the scent of recycled air mingled with the faint tang of ozone from the nearby atmospheric processors. Clara's words from last night echoed in my mind, her quiet fear about the strange noises she'd heard near the lower HAB blocks. Like whispers carried on the wind, she'd said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'd laughed it off then, joking that the building was just settling, or maybe it was the ghosts of bureaucrats past complaining about overtime. But now, standing here, the joke felt hollow. I adjusted my tie and made my way to my workstation. A sleek console bathed in cold blue light. The screen flickered to life, displaying a cascade of data, shipment manifests, supply requisitions, personnel files. Each keystroke I made was precise, deliberate, a small prayer to the Emperor of Efficiency. The weight of responsibility pressed on me like the steel walls surrounding us. A single misfiled report could delay aid to a frontier colony, cost lives, or worse, invite scrutiny from the Administratum's relentless auditors. As I entered the codes for a routine ammo shipment to the Andromeda sector, a sudden alert flashed on my screen. A data anomaly flagged deep within the system. The file referenced a sector I'd never heard of, designated only as Sector X13. The transmission was encrypted with archaic ciphers used before the Great Reorganization, and the message itself was fragmented, filled with references to awakening and the depths. I frowned, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Official protocol demanded immediate reporting of any anomalies, but an inexplicable chill ran down my spine. Something about the message felt wrong. More than that, it felt urgent. Before I could act, the lights flickered once, twice, plunging the room into semi-darkness. A low mechanical groan echoed through the ventilation shafts, vibrating through the floor beneath my feet. Around me, colleagues glanced up, confused but too conditioned to panic. I leaned closer to the screen, trying to decipher more of the message. Then, a whisper, soft but unmistakable, wafted through the room. Not from any speaker, but from the air itself. A voice, ancient and fragmented, speaking in a tongue I couldn't place. The hairs on my neck stood on end. James! I spun around, searching the empty corridor beyond the flickering lights. No one was there. Just the cold, sterile walls and the distant hum of the city's machinery. Probably just your imagination, I muttered, though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Still, the message lingered in my mind like a shadow that refused to fade.
Sector Octubre de 13.
The awakening. The depths. As I returned to my work, a nagging thought gnawed at me. What if the stories from below weren't just legends? What if something truly ancient stirred beneath London Deep's foundations? Something that the endless bureaucracy and artificial order could neither contain nor understand. I shook my head, trying to focus. After all, in a city ruled by schedules and procedures, there was no room for mysteries. Not today. Not ever. But deep in the shadows, the pulse of something vast and patient quickened, waiting for the moment when order would falter and secrets buried for millennia would claw their way to the surface. The hum of the ventilation system droned in my ears as I stepped out of the administrative block and into the crowded corridors of London Deep's mid-levels. The air here was thicker, tinged with the faint metallic scent that always reminded me of old factories and forgotten wars. It clung to your clothes and skin, a constant reminder that beneath the polished bureaucracy, the city was built on layers of rust and sweat. Clara was waiting for me outside the communal dining hall, her sharp green eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for something or someone. She wore the standard issue gray dress of the administratum, tailored to hug her slender form in a way that was both professional and subtly alluring. Her black leather gloves and polished boots clicked softly against the metal floor as she approached. The silver chain around her neck caught the artificial light, shimmering like a secret promise. "James," she said, voice low, almost conspiratorial. "We need to talk. Now." I narrowed my eyes. Clara wasn't one for dramatics. When she used that tone, it meant trouble, or a secret she couldn't keep bottled up any longer. We slipped into a quiet alcove near the food dispensers, where the hum of mechanical servers filled the space with a rhythmic clatter. The air was warm here, scented faintly with synthetic vanilla and something metallic, probably the protein paste everyone called breakfast. "I heard noises," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Down near the old industrial sector, near the abandoned shafts. People say the deep dwellers are restless." I raised an eyebrow. "The deep dwellers? You mean those ghost stories we chuckle about at the office?" She shook her head, a hint of steel behind her soft features. "They're real, James, and they're not happy. Last night, I saw shadows moving near the atmospheric processors. Figures that shouldn't be there. And the air, it changed. Like it was alive." I chuckled nervously, trying to shake the creeping unease. "Maybe you just need more sleep. Or less protein paste." Clara smirked, but there was no humor in her eyes. "I'm serious, and it's not just the shadows. There's something else, something beneath us. The city's heartbeat is skipping, like it's sensing a storm." Her words echoed the strange message I'd intercepted earlier. Sector X-13. The awakening. The depths. It was beginning to feel less like coincidence and more like a warning. Before I could respond, a sharp metallic clang echoed down the corridor, followed by hurried footsteps. A group of tech priests in black robes, their faces obscured by helmets adorned with glowing red lenses, rushed past us. Their presence always meant something serious. They regarded us with cold indifference as they hurried toward the lower levels. Clara's eyes narrowed. "They're investigating. Whatever's happening down there is official now." I swallowed hard. The tech priests were the keepers of the city's machines and secrets. If they were involved, things were worse than I imagined. "Do you think it's connected to the message? The one I found on my terminal?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "I don't know what it means yet, but it's a start. We need to find out more before the administratum clamps down and shuts everything down." A sudden flicker of movement caught my eye. A figure slipping into a side passage, cloaked in a tattered gray coat that seemed out of place among the uniformed masses. The person moved with a grace that betrayed a lifetime navigating the city's hidden veins. "Wait!" I called, but the figure vanished into the shadows before I could reach them. Clara grabbed my arm. "Don't chase ghosts, James. Not yet." But the seed of curiosity was planted. Beneath the endless bureaucracy, beneath the artificial skies and mechanical heartbeat, a secret world thrived, and I was about to step into its shadows. As we parted ways, the city's artificial dusk settled over London Deep, bathing the towering spires in hues of violet and orange. Somewhere deep below, the pulse quickened again. A rhythm not of machinery, but something ancient and alive. And I had a feeling it was calling me. The evening air in London Deep was artificial, but it still carried a weight, a dense, almost tangible pressure that pressed down through the layers of steel and glass. I stepped onto the observation deck of the Victoria Block, the city's towering heart, and gazed out across the sprawling vertical maze below. The endless HAB blocks stretched like monoliths toward the synthetic sky, their windows glowing faintly with the lives of millions. It was a city that never truly slept. Even now, the pneumatic tubes hissed and clattered, carrying souls between the tiers. Clara's warning echoed in my mind as I scanned the horizon. The figure in the tattered coat had vanished, swallowed by the labyrinthine corridors. I felt the familiar itch of unease crawl up my spine. Not from the cold, but from the knowledge that beneath this engineered perfection, something wild and untamed stirred. I turned away from the view and made my way to the lower levels, descending through the city's veins on the pneumatic tubes. The air shifted as we plunged deeper, growing heavier, tinged with the metallic scent of rust and old machinery. The glow from the bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls cast eerie shadows that danced like specters. At the industrial sector, the machinery groaned with age. Pistons hissed, conveyor belts clattered, and somewhere in the distance, a low rumble thrummed. A sound that felt less mechanical and more alive. I moved cautiously, the soles of my boots echoing against the cold metal floor. Then I saw it. A shrine built into the side of a rusted pipe, adorned with relics salvaged from forgotten technology. Flickering holoscreens displayed faded symbols, half erased by time, while candles burned with unnatural blue flames. At its center stood a figure, the deep dweller Clara had warned me about. She was unlike anyone I had ever seen. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, veins faintly glowing beneath the surface. Her eyes, a piercing shade of ice blue, reflected the dim light with an intensity that made me shiver. She wore a gown woven from strands of metallic fibers and scraps of synthetic fabric, clinging to her lithe frame with an elegance that defied the grime surrounding her. Around her neck hung a pendant fashioned from an ancient circuit board, its edges worn smooth by centuries of touch. "Welcome, James," she said, her voice a soft murmur that seemed to resonate with the very walls. "We've been waiting." I swallowed hard, heart pounding. "Who are you? What is this place?" She smiled, a slow, enigmatic curve of her lips. "We are the custodians of the forgotten, the ones who tend the roots of the city, the machines you rely on but never see. We keep the balance." I glanced around, noticing others emerging from the shadows, figures clad in similar garb, their faces marked with symbols that shimmered faintly under the blue light. They moved with a grace born of centuries surviving in the harshest conditions, their bodies adapted to depths where the air would kill an unprotected surface dweller. "You mean the deep dwellers?" I whispered, recalling Clara's tales. "Exactly," she said. "We worship the pulse beneath the city, the eternal rhythm that sustains London Deep. But something has changed. The pulse falters. The machines dream restless dreams, and with them, we do too." Her words sent a chill through me. Machines dreaming? It sounded like madness. Yet, standing there amidst relics of forgotten ages, I felt the truth of it deep in my bones. "What do you want from me?" I asked. She stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my breath hitch. "You carry the message, James. The anomaly you found, it is a call, a summons to awaken. The city needs you, to choose." A flicker of doubt surged through me. I was just a clerk, a cog in a vast machine. What choice could I possibly make? She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. Her touch was cool, electric. "Choice is the terror of our kind, but it is also the spark of life." As the blue flames flickered, casting dancing shadows on the rusted walls, I realized that beneath the endless order of London Deep, a storm was gathering, and I was standing at its eye. I blinked, trying to steady my racing thoughts as the deep dweller's cool fingers lingered for a moment longer than expected. Her eyes bore into mine, as if peeling back the layers of years spent buried in paperwork and ordered routines to reveal something raw and unguarded beneath. The scent of ozone and ancient metal clung to her, mingling with a faint trace of something softer, like lavender and distant memories. "Awaken," she repeated softly, her voice a melody that seemed to echo in the empty chamber. "The city's heart is faltering. The pulse beneath us grows erratic. The machines dream, but their dreams are turning dark." I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling into my chest like a cold stone. Machines dreaming was one thing, an eerie thought. Machines dreaming dark dreams was something else entirely, a warning written in code and shadow. "What happens if the pulse fails?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, her gaze flickering toward the tangled network of pipes and conduits overhead. "Without the pulse, the city's breath will stop. The air will turn toxic. The balance will shatter. And then, chaos." A shiver ran down my spine. I'd grown up believing our world was a triumph of order over chaos, a fortress of efficiency holding back the void. But now, standing here with these guardians of forgotten things, I realized how fragile that fortress really was. "Why me?" I pressed. "I'm just a clerk. I file reports. I don't have the skills to fix whatever this is." She smiled, and it was both kind and haunting. "Because you remember. Because you listen. The pulse speaks to those who hear beyond the noise. You carry the anomaly in your thoughts, that flicker of something ancient that others have buried beneath layers of routine." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I'd felt it, the vibration beneath the city, the whispered voices carried on recycled air, the strange dreams that crept into my sleep like fragments of forgotten prayers. "Then what must I do?" I asked, suddenly aware of the cold sweat dampening my brow. "You must journey deeper," she said, stepping back into the shadows. "Beyond the industrial sector, past the sealed chambers where even the tech priests dare not tread. There lies the heart of the pulse, the source of the city's breath. If you can reach it, you may find the answer. But beware, the path is perilous, and not all who enter return." A flicker of irony crossed my mind. Here I was, an unremarkable clerk, suddenly cast as some kind of reluctant hero in a story that felt ripped from the pages of ancient myths. I wanted to laugh, but the weight of responsibility pressed down too heavily. "Will you come with me?" I asked, though a part of me dreaded the answer. She shook her head slowly. "My place is here, tending the roots. But I will guide you as best I can. The city's breath flows through me. I can show you the way." She stepped forward, extending a slender hand. Her touch was electric, sending a jolt through my arm. Suddenly, the chamber around us shimmered, folding away like a curtain to reveal a narrow spiral staircase descending into darkness. I swallowed, heart pounding. The air was colder here, tinged with the scent of rust and something older, something alive. As I took my first step down, a voice echoed in my mind, a chorus of whispers rising like a tide. "Choose or perish." Behind me, the shrine's blue flames flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to reach out, beckoning me forward. I didn't know what awaited at the pulse's heart, but I knew one thing with chilling certainty. My life, and the fate of London Deep, were about to change forever. The spiral staircase wound downward, its metal steps slick with condensation and age. Each footfall echoed through the narrow shaft, a steady drumbeat that seemed to merge with the distant hum of the city's heartbeat. The air grew colder and heavier as I descended, carrying the faint tang of ancient oil and something else. Something faintly metallic, like blood long dried but never forgotten. The narrow walls closed in, lined with corroded pipes and tangled cables that pulsed faintly with residual energy. Bioluminescent fungi clung to the cracks, casting an eerie, pale light that flickered like ghostly fireflies. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my nerves. This was no longer the neat, regulated world of clerks and schedules. This was the city's underbelly, a forgotten realm where machines and life had merged into something alien. At the bottom, the staircase opened into a vast chamber, an ancient engine room rumored to be the original heart of London Deep. Massive turbines loomed overhead, their surfaces scarred by time and neglect, yet still humming with latent power. The air thrummed with energy, vibrating through my bones like a distant storm. A figure stepped forward from the shadows. A man, though his skin was pale and stretched tight over angular bones. His eyes gleamed with unnatural clarity beneath the hood of a tattered robe. "You seek the pulse," he said, voice like grinding metal. "Few come here willingly. Fewer still return unchanged." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I have to know why the city's breath falters. What's causing the pulse to skip?" He smiled, a cold, humorless twist of lips. "The pulse is more than machinery. It's the soul of London deep, woven from the minds and memories of 1,000,000,000,000 souls. But the balance is breaking. The bureaucracy above demands perfection, but beneath, chaos stirs." His words resonated with the message I'd found. The anomaly, the awakening. "What kind of chaos?" He gestured toward a massive console, its panels cracked and flickering erratically. "The machines dream, but these dreams have turned into nightmares. Fractured data streams, corrupted protocols, whispers of something ancient stirring beneath the foundations." I stepped closer, eyes scanning the console's erratic readouts. Images flickered, fractured schematics, glowing symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and fragments of a language older than the city itself. "Why now?" I asked. "Why is this happening after all these centuries?" The man's gaze darkened. "Because the city has grown too large, too complex. The pulse struggles to sustain 1,000,000,000,000 lives. And beneath the surface, something stirs. Something that predates London deep, predates even the Empire." A chill ran down my spine. "Something like what?" He lowered his voice. "A force beyond comprehension. An entity born from the fusion of technology and consciousness, shaped by millennia of human will and sacrifice. It has slept for ages, but the pulse has begun to awaken it." I swallowed, feeling the weight of his words settle deep within me. This was no mere malfunction. This was a reckoning. Suddenly, the chamber trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. The turbines groaned, their rhythm faltering. Red warning lights blinked erratically, casting the room in a strobing glow. "The pulse is failing," the man said grimly. "We must act quickly." Before I could respond, a low, resonant sound filled the chamber. A deep, vibrating hum that seemed to emanate from the very core of the city. The air rippled, and for a moment, I saw visions. Waves of light and shadow, faces blurred by time, and a vast, pulsating heart beating beneath the steel and stone. The machines were no longer just tools. They were alive, dreaming, and those dreams were bleeding into reality. I clenched my fists, knowing that the path ahead would test everything I was. The choice was no longer mine alone. The pulse demanded a sacrifice, and I was already entangled in its eternal rhythm. The chamber's trembling intensified, sending loose cables swinging like serpents and forcing me to steady myself against the cold metal railing. The deep hum morphed into a guttural growl, reverberating through the walls and into my bones. The ancient turbines overhead struggled to maintain their spin, their colossal blades groaning under invisible strain. It felt as though the city itself was gasping for breath, caught in the grip of a nightmare it could neither wake from nor escape. The pale man beside me, his name, I learned, was Ellis, pressed a series of buttons on the console, his fingers moving with practiced precision despite the chaos. Streams of data cascaded across the cracked screens, flooding the chamber with erratic bursts of light and shadow. "This is the core interface," he explained, voice steady despite the turmoil. "It connects directly to the pulse, the heartbeat of London Deep's entire atmospheric and life support systems." I swallowed hard, eyes glued to the disjointed images flickering on the screens. Among the streams of corrupted code, strange symbols appeared, twisting glyphs that seemed to pulse with a subtle, hypnotic rhythm. They weren't language as I knew it. They felt more like emotions made visible, a psychic code written in light and shadow. "Those are the dreams," Ellis said. "Fragments of the pulse's consciousness. They show us what it experiences, the hopes, fears, and memories of every soul on this planet. But lately, something else has crept in. Something alien. A chill ran down my spine, and I glanced toward the darkened corners of the chamber where shadows seemed to writhe unnaturally. The very air felt charged, alive with a presence both ancient and unknowable. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and snapped off, plunging us into near darkness. Only the eerie glow from the bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls provided faint illumination. The turbines slowed, their groans fading into ominous silence. "Emergency powers failing," Ellis muttered, fingers flying over the console in a desperate attempt to stabilize the systems. "If we lose the core, the entire city's atmosphere will collapse." I felt my breath catch. 1 billion lives depended on machines now teetering on the edge of oblivion. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber, soft at first, then growing louder, layered with whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It was the pulse itself, speaking in a fractured, haunting chorus. "Choose, choose, choose." The words reverberated inside my skull, piercing through the rising panic. I staggered, clutching the railing as a wave of vertigo washed over me. Ellis looked at me, eyes wide. "It's calling you. The pulse senses you, your connection to the anomaly. You must decide." "Decide what?" I gasped. "To merge with it. To become part of the city's heartbeat. To guide the pulse through its awakening." The weight of his words crushed me. To become one with the pulse meant surrendering everything I was, my memories, my identity, my very self, to a vast, incomprehensible consciousness. Yet it was the only way to save London Deep. I closed my eyes, the whispers swirling around me like a storm. Images flashed behind my lids. Clara's worried gaze, the endless corridors of the city, the forgotten faces of the deep dwellers, and the faint, flickering hope buried beneath the machinery. A strange calm settled over me, and I knew the choice was mine. But before I could answer, the chamber shuddered violently. A deep fissure cracked the floor beneath us, and from the darkness below, a low, guttural growl echoed. A sound that was neither machine nor beast, but something far older. Ellis's voice broke through the chaos. "It's awake." And in that moment, I understood. The pulse's dreams had become nightmares. The city's heart was no longer just beating. It was fighting to survive. I stepped forward, toward the glowing core. The future of London Deep hinged on the choice I was about to make. The fissure beneath my feet yawned wider, jagged edges splitting the cold metal floor like cracked glass. From its depths rose a low, resonant growl, a vibration that thrummed through the chamber and into my very bones. The turbines faltered, their giant blades creaking as if resisting some unseen force pulling at the city's heart. Ellis grabbed my arm, his grip firm but urgent. "You don't have much time. The pulse's awakening is destabilizing everything. If you don't act now, London Deep will suffocate in its own breath." I swallowed hard, the weight of the moment pressing down like the crushing pressure of the city's depths. To merge with the pulse, to become part of this vast, living machine was to lose myself forever. Yet, to refuse was to condemn billions. A shimmering light bloomed from the fissure, swirling with colors impossible to name. Liquid silver, molten gold, and shadows deeper than night. The pulse itself, alive and awakening. "Step forward, James." A voice whispered in my mind, layered with countless others. A chorus of hope, fear, and determination. "Become the rhythm. Guide us beyond the dark." My heart thundered in my chest as I took a hesitant step toward the light. The air crackled, charged with energy that danced across my skin like electric fire. Memories flooded my mind. Faces I'd never seen. Voices I'd never heard. Moments from lives intertwined across centuries. I reached out, fingertips brushing the shimmering surface. A jolt shot through me, and suddenly I was falling through waves of light and sound, through echoes of time and space. The pulse enveloped me, a vast consciousness weaving itself into my being. Visions cascaded before my eyes. The city's birth, the construction of its towering spires, the rise of the administratum and the endless cycles of bureaucracy. The forgotten deep dwellers tending ancient shrines, and beneath it all, a lurking presence. an ancient force born from the fusion of machine and mind, waiting for its moment. I heard a voice, clear and commanding, cutting through the chaos. You are the key, James. The balance depends on your will. I struggled to hold on to myself, to the fragments of my identity slipping like sand through my fingers. The pulse's dreams were overwhelming. Hope, despair, love, fear, all intertwined in a symphony of existence. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the swirling light, a figure cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing with a cold, unnatural fire. It reached toward me, tendrils of shadow coiling like smoke. Reject me, the voice hissed. Join me, and we shall unmake this fragile order. Tear down the lies and rebuild from ruin. The choice was laid bare. Surrender to the darkness and unleash chaos, or embrace the pulse and restore balance. My mind screamed for clarity, but the voices overwhelmed reason. Then, a single memory pierced the storm. A moment with Clara, her smile soft and unwavering, her hand warm in mine. The life I loved, the order I dedicated myself to preserving. With a cry, I seized the memory, anchoring myself to it. I choose life. I choose order. I choose hope. The shadow recoiled with a terrible howl, dissolving into nothingness. The pulse surged, its rhythm steadying, the light brightening into a radiant dawn. I felt myself reborn, a part of the city's heartbeat, yet still me. The balance was restored, for now. But as the chamber stilled and the turbines resumed their steady spin, a new whisper echoed in my mind, soft, elusive, and chilling. This is only the beginning. And far below, in the deepest shadows of London Deep, something ancient stirred once more, watching, waiting. The city's eternal rhythm continued. But the dance of light and shadow had only just begun. The steady hum of the turbines returned, their colossal blades spinning with renewed vigor as London Deep's heartbeat found its rhythm once more. The air in the chamber felt lighter, charged with a quiet optimism that seemed almost foreign after the chaos. I stood at the core, feeling the pulse coursing through me, a living network of light and sound that connected every corner of the city. Ellis approached, his pale face softened by relief. You did it, James. You've become the city's guardian, its living interface. I nodded, though the enormity of what I'd become settled uneasily in my chest. I was no longer just a clerk. I was part of London Deep itself, a conduit for its breath, its memories, its very soul. But the victory felt fragile. As I reached out mentally to stabilize the pulse, fragments of the shadow's final whisper lingered in my mind. Asterisk. This is only the beginning. Asterisk, a cold knot formed in my stomach. The darkness I'd banished might have retreated, but it hadn't vanished. Later, in the quiet solitude of my flat high above the city, Clara met me with a gaze that mixed awe and worry. She wore her gray uniform as always, but tonight it clung to her with a subtle grace. The curve of her waist, the delicate silver pendant resting just above her collarbone catching the soft glow of the artificial light. You've changed, she said softly. I can feel it. I reached for her hand, the connection between us electric yet comforting. London Deep is alive in me now, but there's more beneath this victory. Something waiting in the shadows. She nodded, eyes darkening with determination. Then we face it together. Outside, the city pulsed beneath its artificial sky, its endless towers shimmering like a sea of stars. The great pneumatic tubes hissed as they ferried souls between the layers, oblivious to the silent struggle unfolding in the depths. Meanwhile, far below, in the forgotten tunnels and rusted corridors, the deep dwellers gathered around their ancient shrines. Their voices rose in a haunting chant, a melody older than the empire itself, weaving prayers into the very air. And in the deepest shadows, where no light reached, a flicker of movement stirred. Something vast and patient, its eyes gleaming with cold intelligence, watched the city's pulse with a hunger that defied time. The balance had been restored, but the dance of light and shadow was far from over. Tomorrow, London Deep would wake, unaware that its fate rested in the hands of a clerk turned guardian, and that beneath the endless bureaucracy, mysteries older than humanity awaited their reckoning. The rhythm of the city beat on. But the question remained: who would control the next movement? The dawn in London Deep was not natural. It was a carefully engineered symphony of light, soft glows filtering through the artificial sky in hues of amber and rose, designed to coax the city's inhabitants into another day of relentless order. I stood by my window, watching as the towering HAB blocks awoke, their thousands of windows flickering to life like pixels in a giant mosaic. The pulse within me thrummed in time with the city's breath, a constant reminder that I was no longer merely James, the clerk. I was the living interface of an ancient, vast mechanism, a guardian tethered to a consciousness that spanned generations. Clara entered silently, her gray dress falling elegantly around her slender frame, the silver pendant resting just above her collarbone catching the dawn's light. She moved with the quiet grace of someone who had learned to navigate the city's rigid rhythms without losing herself entirely. "We've held the balance for now," she said softly, joining me at the window. "But whatever stirred beneath us, it's not finished." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle like a shadow. Despite the victory, an unsettling truth lingered. The darkness I had faced was only the surface of something far deeper, far older. A sharp chime interrupted the quiet, a signal from the city's core. I closed my eyes, reaching out with my mind as the pulse whispered secrets in patterns only I could perceive. Among the familiar rhythms, a new pattern emerged, an irregular beat, subtle but unmistakable. "Something's coming," I murmured. Clara's eyes met mine, fierce and unwavering. "Then we prepare." Below us, the city stirred. The pneumatic tubes hissed, carrying millions through their meticulously timed journeys. The bureaucrats, the clerks, the soldiers, all oblivious to the silent war unfolding beneath their feet. And deeper still, in the forgotten tunnels veined with rust and bioluminescent fungi, the deep dwellers moved with purpose. Their chants wove through the air, summoning powers older than the Empire, their shadows stretching like tendrils into the darkness. In the abyssal depths where no light dared to reach, a presence stirred, a vast intelligence woven from the fusion of ancient technology and psychic will. Its eyes, cold and unblinking, watched the pulse with hunger and calculation. The city's eternal rhythm beat on, a fragile dance of light and shadow. But the scales were tipping. The question hung in the air like a whispered prayer. When the next movement begins, who will command the dance? And more importantly, who will survive the reckoning?